Hey, and welcome back to the Pause Purpose Play podcast with me, your host, Michaela Thomas. This is your podcast for reducing perfectionism, developing more compassion for yourself, and also perhaps coming to terms with an ADHD brain. Now, not all of you who listen are ADHD, but I've come to realize that lots of you are. So this episode around rushing might feel one that's close to home for you. Maybe you are constantly rushed off your feet. Now, this is also something that affects a lot of busy parents. So if you are a, say, working mother, you might feel like you're constantly rushing and juggling things. So again, this episode might well be for you, even without the ADHD brain, because I don't want to make this podcast constantly about labels and diagnosing. But as I'm recording this, it is Neurodiversity Awareness Week, and it is also important for me to be spreading that awareness around neurodiversity. Sometimes the way that your brain constantly rushes and flits from subject to subject may be explained by something like neurodivergence, like your brain is just differently wired. That's essentially what neurodivergence means. But stay with me, because rushing is something we also see a lot in modern society. I see women doing it all the time. It's almost like that becomes a badge of honor, that becomes a status symbol, that becomes a sign of success, that you are just constantly rushed and you've got so much on and you're so busy. And actually, it can trigger a lot of thoughts. It can trigger a lot of resistance around slowing down and resting, simply because we feel that if I am not rushed off my feet, maybe I'm then being lazy or complacent or not productive. So I'm here to tell you that rushing doesn't save you time, but it does cost you energy. Think of it like speeding on the roads. If you are speeding, you might have learned from these courses when you were taking your driving license that speeding doesn't save you very much time across a distance. What it does do, however, is it increases the risk of danger to you and others. And I see rushing in a similar way. I know that when I'm rushing, I'm more likely to drop things. I know that some of the ADHD things that are to do with me being clumsy are more likely to happen. So when I'm thinking, I have to get this done really quickly, I have to put my makeup on very quickly, then I'm more likely to drop out my whole, wash bag of makeup on the floor than if I think I need to go slowly because I'm running late. So that's a great mantra for you. I need to go slowly because I'm late. You don't need to run faster because you're running late. You need to slow it down so that you can be more effective, more focused, and doing the things that's really going to help you. So sometimes what we really need to do when we're feeling stressed out, busy, frantic, overwhelmed, is just to slow it down and pause. Pause for long enough to notice what's going on, what's going to be most helpful, what's going to be most harmful, as a way that we can check in with ourselves. If I'm rushing right now, I'm more likely to take the wrong route to the place I'm going, or I'm more likely to send a message to someone that I will regret. So I know nothing good comes out of my rushing. Reducing rushing can reduce my risk of harm to myself and others. And I'm going to be that bold with that statement, because we know that repeated rushing, consistently having this stress response of cortisol in your blood, not the odd spike where you're like, oh, that's the bus, let's just see if we can make it. But the consistent running as if you're running late for a bus constantly is harmful to your body. That level of excretion of cortisol isn't helpful. Our bodies are built for being able to tolerate spikes of stress, but we do need to have that recovery after a period of rushing. So when you rush for the bus, oh, yes, I made it. Sit down and take some deep breaths. This kind of out breath is then helping to regulate your body again. Your pulse starts to slow down again. You start to feel more like, oh, danger over. I made it. It's fine. When you're constantly rushing in your everyday life, even when there is nothing to rush for, concretely, there is no bus that you're nearly missing, but you're constantly just rushing because you're busy, you send a signal to your brain that you're not safe. You send a signal to your brain that you're under attack and need to mobilize. So next time you're trying to get more stuff done, try going more slowly, because your brain will feel more safe. You're more likely to step into clarity. You're more likely to think straight. You're more likely to be able to come up with solutions to your problems. So yeah, reducing rushing will help you feel better and be more productive. It's a bit of a paradox, right? But I'm all about those. I'm all about breaking things apart, finding the function of a behavior. Is this serving you? Is this not serving you? And asking a rather flippant question that we ask in therapy a lot or in coaching. Kind of thinking about this for a moment, asking yourself curiously, the way you rush, how is that working out for you? Does that make you feel good? Does that make you get more stuff done? Does that make you have a high level of quality or excellence in the work you do get done? Or does it make it feel frantic, look sloppy, and make you kind of have a sense that everything is out of control? So I'm guessing here, as I've not met you, but I've met a lot of women like you. And the women who've been in my group coaching program, Burn Bright, the women who've come into my challenge that I've been doing for my spacious year, I'm hearing it across the board that they struggle to pause and slow down and give themselves that permission to not rush things. But I know that when I rush things, I make careless mistakes. Again, hello ADHD. And I'm more likely to come up with impulsive ideas that may or may not be brilliant. And when I slow things down, when I allow myself to kind of go anchor myself sometimes, I'm more likely to tap into the real brilliance and genius of my brain. So if you are like this, don't feel discouraged. It is possible to work with this. It is possible to have recovery when rushing is inevitable, because we all have to rush for a bus sometimes. We all have to leg it to make it on time for school pickups, etc. It's like actually recovery afterwards is so key. So if you are someone who doesn't give yourself that space after something that's been stretchy, then, I've got you. This is something I also do a lot of work around in how we let go of perfect, how we allow ourselves that permission for rest and recovery after rushing, and how we reduce rushing in the first place. This is exactly what we do in Burn Bright. Finding permission to pause for long enough to notice any resistance you have to rest, any urge you have to rush, and how we then can put in rest as resistance to that rushed woman syndrome, as sometimes it's referred to. Maybe I should get someone on the podcast to talk about rushed woman syndrome. But anyway, we can rise up against this. The good girl conditioning we have around it. We can let go of this need to be superwomen and juggle all the stuff and arrive for everything in a frantic state. I'm kind of done with it. That was one of the things I said when I went to a workshop day with one of my coaches, Polly. I set the intention for 2023 and she asked, what are you breaking up with? And I said, well, what are you letting go of? Or something like that. And I was like, I'm breaking up with rushing. And we're now March 2024 and it's really, really hitting home now that I need to just not do it. And sometimes that's how long it takes, right? Sometimes you plant a seed of a thought or an intention and it takes a while for it to really sink in. Sometimes you need to suffer a few more rounds of the impact of rushing or the impact of stressing or the impact of whatever it is that you want to let go of before you kind of go, oh, this is not working out for me. So that flippant question I asked you, how is this working out for you? Sometimes you need to feel that it really isn't working before you let go of it. So if you haven't crashed and burned from rushing and burnout and overwhelm and being stressed, maybe you will. Maybe then you will realize, I don't want to pay this price anymore. I don't want to pay the price of my mental health through all of this rushing anymore. So again, sometimes it takes a few rinses and repeats or a few washes for that to really sink in. And this is exactly why I keep Burn Bright as a 6-month program that women often repeat because they want another wash of it. Not because it didn't work, not because it wasn't good, but because it was that good that they wanted another round of it to really cement it and hit home with making these healthy habits stick long term. The majority of the women who've been through the program have done it more than once. Not because, like I said, it wasn't worthwhile, but because it was so worthwhile, they realized that this is exactly what they needed to put in front of themselves. And then, after doing Burn Bright, they graduate to my other program, which is called Shine, because that's where we can really, truly shine bright. When we are not constantly rushed off our feet, brilliant things happen. Ideas come to fruition. Clarity tends to sink in. We tend to find the courage to take committed action towards our goals, to want to actually change things in our life. That's where it becomes transformational. So for some of the women in Burn Bright, they've then done another round simply because they felt, wow, look at what 6 months did. I wonder what another 6 months can unlock. And seeing that that's the next level, that's the next layer that they keep putting in. And if you've been rushing for decades, maybe you're in your 30s, 40s, even 50s. If you've been rushing for decades, doesn't it make sense that it will take you a bit longer than 6 weeks, 6 months, maybe even 6 years to stop doing it? Or to at least, in the best case scenario then, to notice when you have been doing it, slowly reduce it, and then give yourself the permission to rest and recover afterwards. And that's a big thing of what we do. We're noticing, we're pausing for long enough to notice how this is working out for us. Well, what are the impacts? What's the function of this behavior? The thing you do when you're frantically trying to, make a cup of coffee at the same time as trying to put something in the microwave and packing your kid's school bag. And that level of multitasking, rushing from thing to thing to thing to thing, it's like microwaving your brain. Like we said inside the Spacious Year Challenge when I talked about pausing, where we talked about reducing rushing. I absolutely loved the comments and what happened when the women tried my first little experiment, the little challenge task I gave them for how to reduce rushing and noticing what happens when we do. Do you want to know what it was? I'm contemplating putting together the challenge trainings as an on-demand video, but whenever I can get the time around that, I don't know. I might have my team to do that, but it was so helpful for everyone in there. So I'm contemplating, why don't I just put the recording together for people to do on demand as well, if you've not been able to sign up, or you're listening to this and obviously the challenge date has now passed. But anyway, if you want to watch any of that, drop me a message to info@thethomasconnection.co.uk. Just let me know if you want to watch the replay of the pause, purpose, play, and permission pieces, and I will be talking a bit more about purpose piece in our next episode as well. Not as in-depth as I did in the training, so yeah, look out for that on-demand video if I get around to putting it together. I'm not going to rush it, am I? And until I speak to you next time, do make sure to check out the information page about Burn Bright. You can book a call with me if you want to have a chat about it, if you think it's the right fit for you. If you think you want to work with me, but you don't think that's the right fit for you, still reach out to me. Talk to me. I know that some of you have been lurking in my world for literally years. Maybe now's the time to take action. Don't all rush at once, but slowly, steadily make your way forwards to this page, thethomasconnection.co.uk, burn-bright. thethomasconnection.co.uk, burn-bright. Until I speak to you next time, do please take care of yourself.